Good evening, and welcome to the February 17th, 2015 Town Work Session for the Town of Ossining. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to go right into our work session tonight, and we're going to start off with our number one item, which is accessory apartment law proposed changes, and I would ask John Hamilton to come up. Did you want to sit or you want to stand? Sit, boo-boo.
Good morning.
Hi, John. How are you?
Good, good.
So why don't we let you do the talking tonight, and you can tell us about some of your suggested changes, which we did post on the webpage. Oh, I couldn't see you, John, so you had to move the.
We had an incident with an accessory apartment. Apparently, the police were going there on landlord-tenant complaints for, I guess, a few months before they involved me in it. And when I got over to it and was called into it, the apartment was in such poor condition that I condemned it, and I ordered it vacated. As
you hear
this
him, Matt?
occurred,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. As this occurred, the police also ended up arresting the landlord for various problems that he was generating, and I condemned it and vacated it. And then I went to check in our law because, you know, we have these in quiet residential areas, and we don't need problems like this, because I looked and saw that this was his second tenant already.
Wow.
So I went through our law, and lo and behold, we don't have anything in the law that allows us to revoke an accessory apartment permit. And that's really not the best thing in the world. So I met with the supervisor, and what I would propose is two things. One is I would like to see a section placed into the law giving us the authority to revoke a permit after a hearing if we have violations of the New York State and local ordinances involving life safety, if they're recurring problems, even after they correct, if they keep doing it, or if the police deem this to be a public nuisance or just criminal activity. I'd like us to create that section. I wrote a draft one, but obviously Wayne would have to tune it up. And I would also request that the law be removed from the ordinances as a separate chapter and be placed into the zoning code. The Zoning Board of Appeals issues these accessory apartment permits, so they're familiar with it right from the beginning. And I think that I should not have the authority to revoke a permit on my own. I think that I should petition the zoning board. Since they issued the permit for purposes of continuity, I would go before them and request a hearing to determine if this permit should then be revoked. So I am asking for those two things. One is to sharpen and toughen the law a little bit so that we can revoke it, and two is to put it into the zoning code so the zoning board can become the hearing officers since they issued it to determine if in fact it should be revoked.
I have a question. If it wasn't in the zoning code, where would it be?
It's currently in Chapter 50 of the regular ordinances, but it doesn't give us any board that would then have control over it. And my feeling was, for the purposes of continuity, to have the zoning board do it since they issued it.
They issued it in the first place.
Right, right.
Well, I don't think it needs to be moved necessarily.
Well,
I think we
speak
could-
into the mic.
Oh.
I apologize. I
That's
don't think
okay.
it necessarily needs to be moved. I think we just need to add the provisions that John, after discussing them and reviewing them, to the current section, as
Well,
opposed
then
to...
who would have the authority?
Well,
Then how, what were
well-
your what are your suggested steps then?
Well, right now, the zoning board has the approval authority to begin with.
Right.
So, and it's not, it's its own section, its own chapter of the code. I mean, I don't think moving it into the zoning code necessarily has an impact one way or the other, because it's not a variance that you're asking for here.
No, I'm
It's
asking
more-
for a revocation.
Right. It's just like sort of an extension of the current law to provide the next step in the event, another incident occurs as John has described. So I'm neutral on this issue of moving it one way or the other. I don't think it creates or any additional rights or obligations just by moving it. I think we could add the actual specific provisions to this code as it is in its current chapter location.
Meaning adding the provision of having the zoning board review it, of just putting all that language into the section it already
Right.
exists in.
I mean, this is not a substantive discussion. It's just procedural right now. So
Well, what would the steps be to move it from a chapter to a section, and to make the changes? What are the steps?
well, it's a local law.
Right.
And, the local law, number one, as far as the actual substantive language in the section, we revise the language, we add the additional language. I don't necessarily think we need to change too much in the
No.
current
No,
body
no.
of it.
If you read it, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't even suggest
And
that.
then we just have to, if the board chooses to eliminate it as a separate chapter, then we simply find the proper place for it under the zoning provisions.
Excuse me. Gareth, could you close that door? It will keep the room a lot warmer too. Go ahead.
Which is section 200 of the code right now. But again, as far as renumbering and changing and moving things around, I don't necessarily feel it's necessary. Moving it into the zoning code doesn't give it any additional, doesn't give the zoning board any additional authority than it already has, or that it will have, given the nature of the proposed changes. That's just on the procedural side of it.
So, the way it currently stands, there's an enforcement provision, and that's why it's in its current location in the code, because the zoning board is more like issuing authority, or the grant variance is a grant, accessory structure permits, but they're not the enforcement arm of the code.
Well, in any event, the gentleman sitting to my right is always the enforcement arm anyway, whether it's here or elsewhere.
Right. So, shouldn't it stay there?
Well, you have enforcement issues on the zoning code as well. If somebody violates the zoning code, John would issue an appropriate either order to remedy, or summons would be issued as well. So it doesn't really change anything substantively.
Well, then shouldn't there be maybe just add a section?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that would do the same trick. We're really talking about, right now, just substance, form over substance. It really doesn't matter. The bottom line is to add the necessary provisions that John is requesting.
Okay, and that would cut out the.
It would be procedurally a little bit easier, as opposed to renumbering all the chapters. It would just be a simple matter of just amending the current chapter.
Can I ask, John, why is it that you don't want it to be just based upon a simple addition of a clause in the current code section?
Yeah, for two reasons. One, again, I felt that since the zoning board was the issuing authority, they should be the ones to revoke it. And additionally, if we moved it into the zoning code, the penalties for violation of a zoning ordinance kicks in, which are far more severe than what we currently have in the local ordinance. So I was hoping to move everything into there. It's like all continuity. As far as renumbering, it wouldn't be a big thing because section 200-8 is blank right now, and we would just make it section 200-8.
Can we not increase the penalties?
That would be whatever the board decided.
So if it was to stay in the same chapter, John would say that they wanted to wanted to revoke someone's license to have an accessory apartment. And then what would the steps be? The steps would be that you would give them a summons and they would go to court, John?
It would be the same regardless of where it is in our local ordinances. Normally, there's the issuance of a notice of violation, and then, if necessary, the issuance of a court appearance ticket with a penalty imposed on it.
And this would be with the individual who has the current unit?
It would be with the property owner who has the permit.
Right.
Right,
Not the tenants.
right.
Right.
Although the tenants, we hold responsible for damage that they incur in the unit as well. if we know that a landlord put in smoke detectors and the tenant takes them down because they make too much noise when they cook, that's the tenant's responsibility. We're not gonna punish the landlord for it.
Well, right now, just so the board is aware, there's no natural, except for the sale of the property, there's no expiration or renewals provisions within the code as it is right now. Well, I'm sorry, every 3 years, but it doesn't go before the zoning board.
Not at this time, no.
Right. So, I mean, we can toughen up the renewal process as well.
Sure, I have no objection, I have no objection to us going in there every year to inspect these units and giving a report to the board, somebody at the 3-year renewal, because even as it stands right now, they automatically renew. They just send in the money and they're automatically renewed because there's nothing in the provisions to stop
Right.
it.
Right, that's what I meant. There's no
Yeah.
process involved with the renewal. It just is an automatic.
How many units are we talking about, Joe?
Oh gosh, how many units do we have now? We have less than 100.
But we have close to 100.
Close to it, but,
You
you
can
know,
look at it
less
the
but
opposite
close
way,
to it.
too,
Yeah,
you know.
that's true.
We have,
Yeah.
so.
And,
So if we were to do something like this as a first step and stuff and leave it in its own chapter, if it seems to be the will of the board, we could also in it change the inspections, or would
would do
that,
that.
I mean, why wouldn't we do these things and all at once and, like, then we have to, because we're going to have the public hearings anyway.
Right.
And, and a yearly inspection should not be a major thing for any landlord
agree
that,
wholeheartedly.
right.
I would love to
So,
get them every year.
you know what I mean?
I agree. I mean, I'm all for if, there doesn't seem to be anything within here that sounds like it shouldn't be done. We should have, if you're going to have a process to allow something, there should be a process to disallow it if it's abused
Right.
or if it's not being followed correctly. I feel that if it's as easy to leave it in the section that it is and put in the provisions that are being requested, if the zoning board is the appropriate board to take a look at this, because that's where it originates from. I'm just saying where I'm at on you.
So
I have no
is
problem
that,
with
is that what would happen? Would the zoning board be the one that you would make these yearly reports to, and they
Well-
would, and are they the ones that at this point renew these, automatically do
Well,
these
yes
renewals?
and no. The way it stands right now, I do the inspection.
I just, sorry,
and
I just want to
I'm-
make
I'm
sure
sorry,
you
I do the
clarified that.
inspection, and if there's any corrections that need to be made, I have them done, and then we issue them their new permit. That's the way it goes right now. Once the zoning board issues the permit, they never see it again.
Oh,
There is another issue, which John and I just discussed, is that if the if it's transferred to the zoning board, zoning code, I'm sorry, the zoning board has the authority to issue variances. So, we've dealt with this issue before, which is the fact that outbuildings versus the main building, whether accessory apartments should be allowed in essentially outbuildings on a property versus the main building. Right now, the code provides that it has to be part of the main structure. And if you recall, we had a matter come up before where there was some discussion about allowing accessory apartments in like detached garages or other structures. So, I mean, the one thing about the code as it is right now is that there's no process for a variance, which is why the only way to allow any other use or anything beyond what's already in the code specifically would be to change the law, which the board elected not to do. But if you put it in the zoning code, the zoning board will have inherent authority to issue a variance under certain circumstances.
well, I think that some of these other issues are very important, that I don't want them to get hung up like we got hung up on the last time. Because of a difference of opinion as to where the accessory apartment was. I agree that that topic may come up again in the future, but I don't want to stop someone from being able to inspect the apartments once a year, or to revoke someone that is a constant. I don't want that to get lost in, even though I would like to point out that the Village of Briarcliff Manor has passed a law that allows accessory apartments in outbuildings too. So I want to make that clear. It was done last fall. So, but again, I'm not sure what the reaction to the public would be, but I would like to do stuff in steps. And I think that I would be very interested, and it was members of this board that were against it too, against having accessory apartments in outbuildings.
Yeah.
So I think what we want to do is maybe,
Can I
Well,
just also say I'm not against increasing fees if that's part of the issue about changing its location, if I mean, I don't know what exact fees we're talking about, but whenever we're talking about revoking something because of abuse, I'm okay with fees. Does that,
No, we're talking penalties, actually, we're not talking fees.
Well,
okay, well,
yeah.
then that
Right.
would be the correct usage of, I'm sorry, penalties would make sense with respect to, so.
I'd like to add, well, I'll just comment on two things. Number one, about about what would probably be a use variance. If you're taking it from as part of the primary structure, and you're going to create an outbuilding, that created in an outbuilding, that would be a use variance, wouldn't it? And that would be upon initial application for the accessory structure, and that would be already in the purview of the zoning board.
No, that's not correct.
no, because it's a separate.
It's a separate chapter, so the zoning board can only,
I thought
They-
the zoning board issues the
they issue the
permit.
permit, but they don't have the authority to vary it because it's not part of the zoning code.
Right now, there's no one that oversees the law other than my compliance with fire safety codes. There's no one that oversees them. No one.
The oversees the accessory dwellings as they stand, you're talking
Correct.
about.
There's no
Right.
control over them other than inspection for
Well,
fire
it's,
compliance.
they allow them to have it, and it's assumed that you go directly to chapter 50, which says it has to be inside the main dwelling.
Mhm.
So that's what, they don't have that option.
You know,
But
we're
you
talking
incre-
about this in the main dwelling thing, but that's just one part of the whole law. You know, if somebody has a real hardship, you have somebody, elderly couple who's facing foreclosure and needs to make a little accessory apartment, but gee, maybe, the square footage is off by 10 feet. Well, the law is very specific now. That's it. You're done. You're going to lose your house. But maybe the zoning board can say, well, 10 feet's not going to be the end of the world, and you're about to lose your house. It's more than just looking at an outbuilding. It's looking at the whole package of the community and the people that are in it. And, we want to try to keep them here.
Another example of a dimensional issue that could come up for an area variance is right now the prohibition against granting the special permit applications if there's I think if it's within a certain number of feet. Is that
Yes,
correct
that's
as well?
Yeah. Is it 500?
I think it's 500
I
feet.
believe it's 500.
There are other of another unit, and also there's minimums for square footage, which could be varied if it was before the zoning board as well.
But to me, I see this, I see this as two separate issues. One is an application and an approval process in which they may be able to obtain some sort of a variance, but that should be part of the approval process and set forth wherever their current authority is to issue a permit, versus the enforcement aspect, which is if they're having violations and there ought to be penalties, that should be in the enforcement arm. So
You're
maybe,
absolutely correct.
so maybe there's two separate sets of changes that ought to be addressed
You're
here.
absolutely correct.
And we don't want the one to get possibly bogged down with
Right,
the other one.
right.
But
So
do we want to
It's
address this
4
10 times or once?
4 years later, so.
We want to try to address it or
Well, we definitely want to address the amount, how often you inspect the apartments once of this almost 100 that we have, and every now and then another one goes before
right.
the
I have one
zoning
coming up in
board.
a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and we definitely want to make sure that you have the ability to correctly give them correct penalties, if, and you want to be able to revoke it if they're a constant problem.
Right.
So, I mean, that
Exactly
is
right.
very positive towards all
Mm-hmm.
the neighbors to be able to have that ability to do all those things, and it's the correct thing for a building inspector to do.
And if I could add one thing here, these go before the zoning board. 99.99999% of them are approved because the law says you must approve them. As long as they meet that criteria, that's it. They have to be approved.
I'm going to agree with the council people that that's a bigger scoped project, and it's definitely something we should address. I mean, you don't want someone to not be able to put an accessory apartment in because he's got 10 extra feet, which more feet is better than less feet, I would assume, right? But I think we need to look at it as a whole. But I think the first step, and because this is also what we gave the board to review, was not necessarily the you wrote section and where a chapter was, but that didn't, it really was the ability to revoke a license, permit. It's a permit, right? Yeah. And it's revoke it, and I think that the inspection should be taken into consideration while we do that. And I think we should look at the fee structure as to what those penalties are.
Sounds good to me.
And that's a good starting point. That's not to say that we don't want to look at it again and say it isn't all about outbuildings. It's more about what can you do with your current building, giving a little bit of flexibility to the zoning board when they look at it, letting them look at maybe other characteristics that might allow them to, because I know they've never rejected one.
I don't remember one being rejected.
I remember one was close, but because there's a lot of things in there. There's parking spots. There must be a parking area for the, a parking spot for the person in the apartment, and stuff like that.
But the gentleman
It's
who
like-
owns the house could be arrested 10 times and still get the permit.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll definitely look at that as as some of the other options. But I think to go ahead on this part, just leaving it in the chapter and then looking at the whole thing and then possibly thinking about moving it into that would be another whole group of meetings. So the next step on something like this would be to, do we agree that it would be, that not only are we looking to add it's not little, the chapter that he put about, to revoke a
50.
special permit, but also to change the inspection to a yearly inspection. Does anybody have any problems with that?
No.
No.
Okay. No, Northern?
No.
Okay, so, yeah, go ahead,
If I
sir.
may, John, what
Guys are-
what rights do the tenant
In regards to
have?
complaints,
If a tenant is being abused?
well, they can
Or physically
contact
being-
me if they feel that the building has issues. They can certainly contact the police, as what happened in this situation,
Right.
if they're being harassed. And between the two of us, we can take whatever action we deem necessary, but we cannot revoke the permit at the present time.
So what we're doing would include a modification so that the tenant has some rights here?
Well, I think what we're doing is probably protecting the neighborhood in the long run.
And the tenant.
And the tenant, although, yeah.
Revoking
although if we
revoking
revoke it-
the tenant may be losing their home.
Right.
Yeah, but if it's so bad that
I'm
they're,
speaking about the other situation,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
right?
What, are you talking about when they inspect it?
At any time,
Oh, yeah.
at any point.
But I think that if you had a law that said you were going to inspect an apartment, I'll agree with Jeff on this, when you're going to inspect an apartment once a year, that is a lot different than someone thinking you're coming in 3 years. So they'll maintain the apartment, okay, which will help the tenant.
Agreed.
And if there is a question that you could revoke the license, the permit, excuse me, the permit, then it will also help the tenant because people will naturally maintain the buildings better.
It gives them incentive.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So what we would do is then put the part about the inspection being once a year instead of every 3 years. Put the chapter, the section in.
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you also speak to, you said at this point, every 3 years there's an automatic renewal. So does the annual inspection, does that go far for you in terms of what you were thinking? Is the annual inspection enough to stay that automatic renewal? Or is there something in addition that you think should be some kind of process that they have, I'm just asking.
Right. In my opinion, I think that would be fine the way it is because, again, if we start seeing a pattern of life safety issues that even though they're corrected, we come back the next time and they're there again and they're there again, or if the police contact us and say we just arrested somebody for criminal activity, drugs, whatever the case may be, then that 3-year renewal doesn't mean anything because I can then petition the board,
Right.
say I'm requesting this be revoked and
It's the
request a hearing.
revocation that gives
Yeah,
you-
the
gives-
revocation is the strongest thing here.
Yeah.
If anything, that's what I really would like to see is
Yeah.
the ability for the town to revoke these permits.
So our next step would be that we would, Wayne, you would look at this and put it all together and make sure it's worded correctly?
Yeah.
And then we would call for a public hearing on this, right?
Right, we have to be sure that there's adequate protections, due process protections for the property owner. If you're going to revoke the tenant, once you give them a permit, there's a vested right. So
Right.
to revoke it, you have to make sure that there's proper due process as well.
So should we talk about this again in 2 weeks? Well, we don't have it 2 weeks. 2 weeks, we have our town hall meeting. Do we, should we talk about this again, or can you put this together and we can move to the next step?
I
That's
think
what
I
I'm
could
asking.
I could have it for the next work session in a form that, if the board approves it, then we could put it, we could start the process of
Okay.
the town law.
Should we set it for a public hearing?
Not yet, you
Oh,
can't,
yeah,
you have to
yeah,
do it
yeah,
at a meeting,
legislate.
and we have to read what he, we have to read what he's gonna put in, everything, so he does make sure everybody's secure.
A month from today, you'll look at it.
Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
summarize my understanding of
What?
where we are?
Yeah, go ahead.
So currently, we're set to expire, there's no expiration. Are we going to insert a 3-year expiration date? And that if they don't renew, or submit an application for renewal, it would expire?
The way the law reads right now, every 3 years they come up for renewal.
But it's an automatic renewal.
As long as they pay the fee, it's an automatic renewal.
So I would say, do they need to, shouldn't there be like a stopgap where if they don't renew, then it automatically terminates?
Yeah, well, if you don't send in your money and you don't renew it, then it does terminate.
Right.
Okay.
You don't have to state it.
And then you have termination upon sale or violation, or revocation. Revocation upon sale or violation, right? So you
Well,
have special language here upon the
No.
sale of the,
Oh.
you have
No,
a
the way-
revocation
the way
upon
it's
the
already
sale.
right
That's
now-
already in the code.
It's in there, but
Right.
should the revocation mimic the sale of the dwelling in some respect?
No, not really, because
No.
the revocation is as a result of certain specific activities that occur or conditions that exist.
Okay, so then upon the revocation, should a prospective applicant not be permitted to resubmit within a certain period of time, say for like 1 year? Okay, then you're increasing the penalties, annual inspection upon application. Okay.
So could we also, at the next time, when we meet here in 1 month from today, because March and February mimic each other, as long as there's 28 days in February, should we, can you also come back with your suggested fines that you would like to do it, and then we could do that,
Sure,
okay?
sure, I have no problem.
If you want to, this is for bad behavior. This is not.
This is for exemplary bad
Yeah.
behavior.
It's not for somewhat, like, it's not for an example, the example you used before. If a tenant takes down a smoke detector and you're doing your inspection, the landlord and the tenant are allowed to put up another smoke, they get a warning. It's not like this, you don't come in and,
Just so you know, we do take people to court. The courts are the last resort.
Can
we
you make
try-
sure you're talking
Oh,
into the mic?
sorry. We try to work with the public, we do.
Right.
I have people come into my office, I just had an illegal apartment that we caught today. And, do I take him right into court? No. We tell him this is what you have to do. We look at recurring patterns, we look at non-cooperative people. They're the ones that you realize you have to go to court with. The average person who comes to us doesn't necessarily face a court proceeding unless they just choose to ignore everything.
Right, so I think it's important that we explain that to the public too, that it is not,
It's not automatic.
it's not automatic yet, it is for the people that abuse the
Correct.
system and stuff, it is
Mhm.
for them. Good. So we will see you in
Should-
1 month.
Okay.
Oh, sorry,
Before-
Jeff.
Should we, and perhaps you already have, contacted the folks from the zoning board, so that they know what we're doing?
Well, we're not gonna change it to the zoning right now. We're going to leave it in its own little chapter, okay, for now. That would be another phase, yeah. So,
Did you want me to talk about the other?
what was the other thing?
Something else for John to discuss.
Sure.
Okay.
Dangerous, sure.
I know.
Okay.
That was a
Do you
hesitant, sure.
remember that? You asked to talk about the article that was in the newspapers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, it has been a long 2 days already. So I know it's not on the agenda, but on the, in the paper on Monday or Sunday was a whole article about having stricter rules and regulations and code and policies and what have you on massage parlors, right? And I sent you all the,
yes.
I sent you all the article and everything, you know, and I tried to write everything down that, you know, has gone on, because we've done a lot in the last couple of days, too. So, I just want to get your feelings as you read the article.
Mhm.
I sent you the article, you read it.
Mhm.
And where do we stand in,
Currently, in all three of our commercial districts, general business, GB1, and neighborhood commercial, they're all allowed.
okay.
And I started to do a little thinking about this.
Personal service?
Personal service. And I started to think about this, and if you're going to regulate it, at what point do you not regulate it? When my wife goes to the nail salon, there's a massage thing there. When some of the people go to the hair salons, there's a massage thing there.
Oh, right.
So how far are you going to want to regulate this? I just want to mention that to you as well, but right now, all three commercial districts allow it.
Well,
There's no
and there's
regulations against
actually,
it.
I mean,
And there's no regulation?
there's legitimate massage, and we have some here in our community, and,
Well,
so,
the regular masseuses are licensed by New York State.
yes, yes.
It's a very hands-on issue.
Massage is also part
Hey, young man.
Good one.
I mean,
Oh, boy.
massage is also a legitimate part of physical therapy, and we know this, you know, like
I know.
Club Fit has a physical
I think-
therapy.
I think, is there any ability to regulate how late places are open? I mean, you know, I think part of this is passing a smell test. As a female, I know many people who are very busy in their lives, work hard hours, but I don't know any woman who goes to get a massage or their nails done at 11 o'clock at night. I just don't. So,
The regulation of hours is
or
done.
10.
The regulation of hours is done through the planning board via site plans, if a site plan is needed.
So upon approving, when the planning board got this, and a massage parlor would say they were gonna be open till, so
We don't
some of
really
it might
go
be
that-
enforcement, I mean, I was gonna say, is that,
We don't even go that
they-
deep, and our
do they-
planning board doesn't.
There's never been
A change of business.
a massage parlor come before the planning board in all
Yeah.
my years in working for the
You know, I
town.
think
because, right, because they're just a business that opens within
Yeah,
it, they're a
it's
tenant.
Yeah, it's a business, and, yeah. a business.
Yeah, I mean, is there, how about enforcement of action? Because my assumption is probably many of these massage places say, the ones we're talking about, they say they probably have their business establishment open till, let's say, they say 9 o'clock. They're open, though, until 10 or 10:30, so that becomes an enforcement issue
Right.
of
And we've had them
of
enforced.
the police, yes, because,
Yeah,
I mean, our building, I mean, is that how we would?
bring it in.
We
Bring it
didn't,
in.
but we'll take it.
Yeah.
Now,
Pepperoni?
Maybe
Try
second
upstairs.
floor?
wouldn't that be awesome if we just started eating dinner on
Wouldn't
camera?
We ordered Chinese this week.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
though? I mean, but if there's legal business uses, and then there's illegal, right? So I'm not sure I understand. We're talking about the difference between criminality and civility. So if there's a criminal law that prohibits that conduct that's causing these raids or whatever it is, isn't that enough?
No.
Can't answer that.
Yeah.
Does the state have any role to play?
A professional masseuse is licensed by New York State through the
Right.
Department of Education. Excuse me. The ones that are in the massage, that are in the, like the nail salon is just some kid that comes in and rubs your back, I guess.
Oh, no, some of them have legitimate masseuses in
I
there.
don't know.
But I think you're right.
The answer to you, I think, is that if there is a place that may be having some illegal activity, if you don't catch them doing the illegal activity, then nothing happens. However, the surrounding area is negatively affected still by that illegal activity, and I think that's
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes
Sometimes.
it seems like they're not, but, you know, I mean,
Sometimes.
in some places.
there are a lot of sometimes.
But,
and
you know, I
couldn'ts.
mean, I see, you know, and again, because it was a topic on the front page of the paper, I wanted to talk about it because we have spoken about it too, and we have, people know that we've had, the police go into some places and, you know, and have investigations that are ongoing. So we just wanted to make sure that people understood that we're doing, you know, it's not like we have hundreds of them. It's, you know, and I mean, some of the places that were noted in the article are quite large towns. So, I just wanted to make sure that you were comfortable with what we have so far and, you know, what we have on the books right now, so.
Right now, they're all permitted.
Does he have any recommendation?
Yeah,
It's a question of whether or not, I mean, if you have a particular prescribed activity that you're trying to eliminate, whether or not you can come up with a rational basis for putting a restrictive language in your district, which would make sense and not restrict the legitimate business at the same time.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like any business can be run with illegally in some fashion. You know, you could have a fence company that it's also a fence company theoretically, but just like you could have a massage parlor that's a real massage parlor versus you know, another kind of massage parlor. But
You know, we do have one section of the code which is kind of like a catch-all. And that section of the code says that if something that's in a community is offensive or for various reasons, noxious or whatever the case may be, it's a stretch at times, but it's about the only thing that we have in the code that we could use. The police obviously handle this. I don't. They're the ones who would affect arrests if something was needed. I would be called in just to make sure the building was in compliance with local and state ordinances. But the police really handle all of this.
And so, do we have something in our code that says that if there's a criminal activity, that it necessarily also is a civil?
Not that I know.
Why not have something like that, where if they are, for example, if the police go in and raid a place, and then that it's determined that there was illegal activity there, why not use that as the trigger to terminate a site plan approval, or at least penalize the landlord who might be looking the other way?
well, most leases, most commercial leases have provisions in them which state that the tenant is not going to permit any illegal activity within the premises. So
Understood, but why not arm the municipality with
with what? I mean, that's the,
some enforcement mechanism where if there's criminal activity that has been, established, that the municipality can,
well, what would you suggest the municipality do?
I don't know, terminate site plan approval or
I think terminating site terminating site
Modifying
plan
it?
approval maybe is going too far because we don't typically regulate the tenants.
Well, it's usually not the
Penalize
only
the
store there
landlord.
either. It's usually not the only storefront or
Why-
what have you. It's multiple.
Why can't we penalize the landlord?
Well, you guess you have to prove that he had knowledge of a criminal activity.
Well, you don't, I don't think it's a question of,
I don't think proving criminality has a higher burden of proof to begin with.
Right.
I mean, so if you're going to to be convicted of a criminal activity, it has to be convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, so I don't know how this board, can set in motion, anything similar to that.
I think what we will do is we will watch very carefully what other communities do and see if we can't, if we need to, we can piggyback on
I mean, I think it's
some of
yeah.
their items.
I think a similar question, or maybe in some ways similar, is the regulation of pawn shops in a sense. You know, yeah, if you don't want an activity,
PAWN.
exactly. since we're since we're using synonyms tonight as our catch topic, but you know, it's again, you could, as long as there's a reasonable basis or rational basis, you could regulate any activity. I mean, you could eliminate from your code as an allowable use in that district massage parlors, theoretically.
I don't think that would go over well, though,
Yeah.
you know, for the legitimate ones, you know. so,
That's the
yeah.
problem. It's
Right.
always
And it wouldn't be fair, yeah. So let's do this. Let's watch what the other municipalities do. Let's, it's usually, and it was Greenberg that was in there, so he does write to us every single week and tell us what he's up to, so, you know, what he's done so far. So let's see, find out what it was. But I just wanted people to make sure that people understood that we are reacting to situations that we know are a problem, and we have our continuing investigations going on a couple of those places right now.
Thank you.
Thanks. Michael G. O'Connor. What this is ending up to be in the last work session, in this work session, because it's a short month. We have a lot of things going on. We're getting ready for audit. We're really opening up all our topics of things we're going to talk about over the next year, and some of them will take a little longer than others, and then some could be done quite quickly, and we'll move on them. Thank you, sir. It's like leaving off the paragraph. It's like leaving off the end of the.
What I've done is printed out only the first 2 page.
About what we're talking about
Oh,
first.
okay.
Sorry about that.
Wi-
This is the change. This is for we're starting a discussion on creating no parking on certain streets, sections of streets. And that's really what we are, right?
Yes, thank you, Madam Supervisor. A few roads that came up in discussion, one of them was Studio Hill Road, where if you read the ordinance that I gave you, Studio Hill Road there's 2 sections of Studio Hill Road where parking is prohibited. From Tappan Terrace on the east side, on the north side of Studio Hill Road, from Tappan Terrace going east for 350 feet. So therefore, the rest of Studio Hill Road up to the cul-de-sac is allowed parking. On the south side of the Studio Hill Road going east and west, there is no parking whatsoever up to and including the cul-de-sac. There are a few cars that do park up there. Now, most of our streets that we're talking about are streets of approximately 22 feet in width. A traffic lane is almost 8 feet. If you think about like when you pull into the supermarket in your designated parking area, and you got about a foot on each side of your car, and so it's about an 8-foot width, so that 2 people driving past each other have clearance, so the mirrors don't bang. Hopefully, so that's 8 and 8 is 16 feet. Okay, now you're only 6 foot left in the road. So that's when some of the roads, your cars are then having to come out and into the lane of traffic of the other direction in order to get around a parked car in some instances. Now, we brought up Studio Hill because of the commercial entity that's at the top of Studio Hill Road, Haymont House. And that the people going to and from Haymont House for events or dinners or whatever, this I think we should study it and look at it. I would propose that there is parking allowed on Haymont Terrace on one side of Haymont Terrace, up to, but not including the cul-de-sac. And that there's parking in the neighborhood. You're not overly restrictive. And one of the suggestions that I believe would get us out of the problem of the few cars that do park on Studio Hill in the vicinity of Haymont House is that problem would be alleviated by the fact that we wouldn't allow parking on the
Well-
whole street. That's why, in that one instance, I would make that suggestion.
Using that one as an example,
Mm-hmm.
in the past, some of the people on Studio Hill Road will come and say that they like parking in front of their houses because they have visitors. But I think the key to that particular road has been, and I believe that it's a state law, it's parking here to corner. That they park right on the corner of Haymont Terrace and Studio Hill Road. And it's very difficult for the people to get out of Haymont Terrace. I'm using this simply as an example, and they have to go around the car. But is it not a state law that you can't park here to, like 100 feet here to corner or 20 feet here to corner? 100 seems like an outrageous amount, but.
I believe you're allowed to post that. We don't
Okay.
necessarily post like from here to corner.
Right.
There's no parking. We would have to put that in our ordinance.
But I believe that on that
You have-
particular example
you
has
have
been,
you have the right to do that
right, right.
as a me.
Because that
And
has always been the.
That was
the
my
thing,
last
okay.
note, by the
Okay,
way.
sorry.
My very last note.
Sorry.
But no,
Don't have-
thank
take
you
your
for
notes away.
thank you for bringing it up, because that was the point I was going to make in closing, was that because I just had a vehicle a few days ago that was parked on Blue Lantern, and the car was right on the stop bar. He was right next to the stop sign, and the car was parked there. Now, Blue Lantern is a very short street, doesn't see much traffic, and
Got a very cool park on it now.
yeah, very good. Yes, but I believe that we should take that into consideration as well as all the other things. Now,
Okay.
I gave you what is currently in our code, and some of them they make all the sense in the world. Brookside Lane, there's no parking on either side for its entire lane. So Brookside Lane is a road that sees a lot of traffic because people are coming from 134, all right, Ryder Road, which is a county road, Ryder Road to 133, and 133 back over towards Marinol. And they use that so they don't go down through the village. A lot of people cut through Brookside Lane and go down Ryder Road down to Narragansett area vicinity. And so the code is correct. Cedar Lane, another traffic artery in our town, and both sides of that for its entire length, there's no parking. And if you go down to North State Road, there's no parking for its entire length. Now, in considering
Can I ask
that,
a question? Is this is how it exists right now?
yes,
Okay.
thank you, good question, thank you. This is our existing code.
Okay.
And so, if you go to the second page, and you look, Old Albany Post Road is listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and if you read this, all right, if you have to know the roads the way I know it to actually understand what's all going on here. Old Albany Post Road is one of those roads that I'm suggesting there be no parking on both sides from the village line, because the village line is in so many feet in from Ogden Road, and up to the intersection of Quaker Bridge Road. Where it goes out to the dead end, that would be another ordinance, but
But it would be a no parking out
be
to the
no
dead end.
parking on both sides, because
But would that include the people that have made little parking spots onto their own property?
no, they would be fine because they're over the curb, but I
Right.
think that we have to view all of those things as to, was there a curb cut allowed in the site plan approval for that house, for that thing?
I
You
think
would have-
some of them are going to be so old and grandfathered,
And
especially
so
in that section of
that,
town.
You know,
Yeah.
so,
Right.
and that's what's going on. The other things that are in our code, and if you go
Well, the other
da-
one is, excuse me, but then Quaker Bridge from the Old Albany Post Road dead end
Yeah,
all the way to
Quaker,
the Cortland line
to the town line,
has to be
b-
no
both sides.
parking.
No, that's another
It's
one.
terribly
that-
curvy road,
right.
lots of cars on
And
it.
currently, Quaker Bridge, only the east side, and it's
Right.
only from Old Albany, from Old Albany Post Road to Glendale Road. So it's the entire length, but that's wrong because it should have said to the town line, not to Glendale.
Because we have, and I just want to make it clear to people, in the last few years, we have posted no parking signs the entire length because we need to post permanent ones, and we need to correct this because you can't park there and get an emergency vehicle down the road. That's mostly what our
No,
problem
I
is.
mean, we, years
Especially
ago,
in season, in the summer.
years ago, the street that I live on, First Place, people were parking on both sides, and the ambulance came down one night and actually knocked the mirrors off the ambulances because the vehicles were that narrow, and that precipitated the first 300 feet of Ferris Place with only parking on one side, not the other side.
These are some examples that we've talked
That would
about
be an
over the last
example
few
of what
years.
happened.
So I'm just trying to follow. So what do,
He's
what-
going to come back to us.
We're not deciding anything tonight.
He's just
No,
trying
I
to
know. So
explain it
I'm
to you.
just trying to figure out, I mean, what are the, so I've heard Old Albany Post Road, it shouldn't be here 5 times, it should just say no parking on both sides, right? With Quaker Bridge Road, it shouldn't say just east, it should say,
Both.
are there more of those
I-
overall big
Y-
chunks?
Yes, I believe that, Hawks Avenue, Glendale Road should be mentioned, it's not, of the, Glendale part, yes, the first 3 houses, 2, 4, and 6 on the right-hand side going up are in the town of Ossining.
So you wanna, so is it not just changing what exists, but then adding? Are we
Yes.
Right.
requesting to change some of
Right.
And the way that,
clear it up,
yeah,
condense it, and then add new
Yes.
things? Is that what we're trying to
Yes.
do? Okay.
because we have roads that aren't in here at all, and we know, we've posted no parking on them purely because there's no way you can get anything down. I'm not talking about a car, I'm talking about a car or ambulance or a fire truck or anything, a garbage
Right.
truck.
The other thing is that here's an example where Downey Road is mentioned, no parking on the south side from Feeney Road to Dewars Court. Now, Feeney Road goes in from Croton Dam Road, and then it goes in and it actually makes a right turn and becomes a cul-de-sac. Where it does that, it becomes Downey Road. Then Downey Road turns in to become a cul-de-sac, and the road changes the name a third time to Dewars Court, and Dewars Court then goes in and it becomes a cul-de-sac. So none of those other roads are listed, but only one small section of Downey Road is. And one has to wonder why. Somebody probably complained and the board.
I think some of these were done when it wasn't so populated.
Right.
Some of
and-
these houses, like housing developments, were put in later, and or maybe there was 3 houses and now there's 10 houses.
I'm not,
This says Downey Road, south from Feeney Road to Dewars Court. Isn't that what you just said?
that's
All
what
of
I just
those?
said, but that's a tiny little bit. When Feeney Road is never mentioned. And neither is.
It says
we-
from Feeney Road.
Yeah, but I'm saying there's no parking restrictions on Feeney Road. There's no parking restrictions in Dewars Court. Here you had, and also for Baden, you have all these roads in an immediate vicinity, and only one little section of one of the roads was mentioned as a no parking.
It's very important that we be very, very careful with this, though.
Yeah, we're not trying to ban parking everywhere.
Right,
We're trying
because
to be,
people have visitors,
yes.
and they want them to be able to park somewhere near their homes. So I think that we talked about this for years. The 3 years I've been here, we've talked about this no parking situation. So I think what we do is this next month or so, Michael, we make an assertive effort to put all your recommendations together as to what you want. This is the starting point of this discussion. And put your recommendations together, and we'll take a little road trip.
All right. But, okay,
You
but,
know?
and there are one other thing I don't want to
Absolutely.
beat
No,
a
no,
dead
no, no,
horse.
that's
If you go to Tappan Terrace, all right, it's mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, Tappan Terrace. And the second mentioning is from the south lot line of a parcel of land designated on a tax map as Section 1, Plate 12, Block 1, Lot 35, and continuous line along the east and south side of Tappan Terrace to the point at the intersection of the east side of Tappan Terrace where the same shall intersect with the north lot line of a parcel of land on the designated tax map as Section 1, Plate 13, Block 1, Lot 26.
And again, a lot of this was done before these housing developments were
All right.
put in.
We,
So, yeah,
but the
go ahead.
town has changed its system, and this is the old system
Okay.
of designated lots, and
Okay.
it's been, and so
Yeah.
this thing
So
has
what
never
we're going to
been.
do is, you have a lot of work to do, young man,
So
because you have to come back and you have to sit with the
I-
assessors and whatever you have to do.
we would have to get that. The assessor, correct? The assessor does know that. So these are all there. As you can see, I left that for you. If you have any questions, you can
Yep.
give me a call. There is. Here's the whole list on this page here. None of these roads are listed in the code.
Okay.
None of them. So we're not about to do that. We're not about to run up to in front of Waterview Drive and put up no parking signs.
Well, I got to be honest with you. On Waterview Drive, there's an entrance road, and what we have done in the past few summers, because people would park anywhere along Quaker Bridge Road that they could, and that entrance is right there, we would put up temporary no parking signs there because you don't have a visitor that parks out on the like entrance to Waterview. So I think what you need to do, Michael, is put together all your suggestions, and then what we'll do is take a ride, and then we'll post it so people can take a ride if they want to too.
I'm
and check all
available.
this-
Give me a call if you want to see a
check it.
particular road and
Should
my
he
comments
flag
on it.
the distances, or no? Because actually, he's looking for you're looking for wholesale inclusion. So where it's choppy, if there's like this section to this section and this section to that section, you're just saying wipe
Yeah.
out all those
Well, like
differentiations and just say the whole distance.
well, in some cases, not necessarily all the time. The
Sometimes it's because there's a big curve in the road or something that.
So does it make sense
But
for
it
him to
doesn't allow it.
flag certain
I
areas so that
think
when
he
we
has to
go
come
out?
back to us before we flag. We have to come back and then you need to, we flagged once already. We did this. I still have the sticks upstairs from the flagging. So what we want to do is come back with your suggestions, Michael, and take into consideration that maybe parking on one side of the street of some place that has parking on both, as your example of your own street, where there was parking on both sides of the street, they eliminated one side so that that emergency vehicles could get
Can
down,
get
so
through.
that people can have guests and stuff.
we understand that, but there are streets like Old Albany Post Road
I know,
from the
abs-
village line to Quaker Bridge for its entire length up
have-
to the
I
town
have-
line. Streets of that nature, and Hawks Avenue is one of them. Croton Dam Road is another one. Streets of that nature, I'm saying, my suggestion to the board
And
is
has-
that,
we have talked about this many times.
right, is that on those streets, there be no
Yeah,
parking.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
Can I
Yeah,
go ahead, no,
just briefly about Studio Hill, and I don't mean to open a can of worms, but I assume that what you're talking about is based upon the right of way, the street, the paved area of the street being as wide as the right of way, so that there's no room for more pavement on either side.
no, the right-of-way is wider. All the streets are wider.
So then,
that-
why not, in the
what-
case of a Studio Hill, where you're really talking about 6 feet plus 6 feet plus, 2 on feet on either side?
I don't-
Why not just extend the road
What
2
you mean,
more feet?
widen the road? I don't think we want to get into widen the road.
Well, if you have a safety issue,
Well,
doesn't it necessarily have to become
but it
part
can
of the
be done
The
through
only
leg.
safety issue is a lot of cars parking on the road.
It's all right. Studio Hill Road. 65% of Studio Hill Road right now is no parking. 65 to 70% of it is no parking right now. So I'm talking about that other 30%. And that other 30% is, and has shown to be a problem in some cases, where cars have come around, parked cars, and I was told by a resident that they were they felt they were being jeopardized as they were coming up, as that car came around into their lane in order
Well,
to
that was
pass
the here to corner.
hit past on Studio Hill, where it's permitted right now. And I'm just suggesting that because of the nature of the road and the businesses at the top of the road, that road be treated differently than other roads similar to it. Now, the other roads that I mentioned to you that are our main arteries, such as North State Road, Cedar Lane, Morningside Drive, Hawks Avenue, Croton Dam Road, and the combination of Old Albany Post Road and Quaker Bridge Road, that they are more arterial roads, that they not be allowed parking.
And most of them have no parking on them.
I was gonna say, can I ask a question? So I'm gonna go with what I know. So Morningside Drive is what I know. So, or even in the village, I know that there are some times where it says no parking from this time to this time, right? So from 3 in the morning, what do we
No,
have?
it's only
3
in the
In the
town.
town, 3 in the morning to
3
6
till
in the-
6 in the morning. yeah.
3, I mean, are there abilities to change times? So, as I say, Morningside Drive is pretty wide, and people would normally not park. There's one part of Morningside Drive, people would never park on one side of it. On the other side, and you could tell me east or west, I don't know, I'm not that good at knowing which side is. There, there's one side of Morningside Drive people might, you almost never see, but somebody might stop their car at the top and park along their grass halfway on, a little bit on the right of way, and never on the other side. That means that emergency vehicles could pass. Is there something about maybe?
Well, I'm not
We're not talking about
emergency, we're talking about general flow of traffic. On Morningside Drive currently, the only, where
You
you,
mentioned it with Croton, North State, and
as an
Morningside?
arterial road.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't hear that.
I did mention, I mentioned
you
Morningside.
mentioned
As an
Morningside,
arterial
right?
road.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm just trying to, that's what I'm saying is North State Road and Morningside Drive are not the same type of arterial roads. I could see Cedar Lane, you can't, no way. You
Right.
can't, you cannot,
But-
if you
but
park
Michael-
on that one side, you can't get through on the other side.
But
So-
Michael needs to come back with his suggestions, okay?
Yeah.
And I can tell you already that one of our recommendations had been to let parking on one side of North State Road so we could make it more like a community, and we could not do it. We had traffic people go out, and we could not do it because the road wasn't wide enough. So, yes, we agree with you, Michael. We've had this conversation before, and this time we're gonna move forward on it.
Okay, all right. Uh,
So yes, but
Thank
taking into, remember, everything is a suggestion, and you're right, and take into consideration that people like to have company once in a while, and and they like to have them be able to park outside of their house and not walk. But there are definite roads that we cannot even
Right.
start on. Cedar Lane being one of them, North State Road being one of them, Old Albany Post Road dead end, and Quaker Bridge Road.
That's another animal.
You can, no, it's.
The dead
it's-
end.
The dead end we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about
So
that.
anyway, give your suggestions,
I will.
and I think we'll move forward from there. So the other topic that we asked Michael to come, did you have something to say?
I was just gonna say, we also potentially have issues of 17 and 20.
Oh, no, but that's not, that's not, yeah. This is, we'll just keep the roads, the parking, no parking stuff. So anyway, the other topic we wanted you to talk about, Michael, was people shoveling snow into the roads or plowing snow across the street into the other side of the road.
Okay. We've had, the town had a lovely sign at the north end of North State Road that you are entering the business district, town of Ossining, on North State Road. And the people that did the snow plowing for that,
Well, this is an assumption.
it was obvious to me, it was not an assumption. I can see where the snow was plowed.
I know where he's going with
And
this, and I just want to
so
say
they
that it's
plowed across the street and they broke our sign. We have the pieces in storage. But then Dr. Harouche at the animal hospital that he has called me that his sign was broken. And I went out there to look at it, And I pointed it out to him. He says, your men broke this. I said, no, they didn't. I says, look, the snow was plowed from across the street, the business across the street, plowed his snow over here. You can see the tracks, and he pushed it up against your sign and broke your sign. Go knock on his door and find out who his contractor was, because they broke your sign.
And did he get that fixed?
And he fixed it, but I don't know whether he did that or not. But we should, I would like to see if it's possible that we can ban if you have snow on your property, it stays on your property. You have to find some place for it or pay for it to haul it away. You cannot push it across the street and cover the sidewalk on the other side of the street because you want to get the snow off of your property. And they do this. Also, you can't put a tractor on the sidewalk and go down and push all the snow off the sidewalk into the street. And several.
Well, you can use one of those little gators to push the snow off the sidewalk.
To-
You just
but
can't
you
throw
put-
it into the street.
You can't push it back
We
over
do
the
that,
curb.
As our own guys do that, so.
And this is it's been done several times on North
Right.
State Road. And I had the cops back when we had the county cops, and I got the cop, and we got the guy. The guy had his truck and everything else, and I am yelling, give him a ticket, whatever, and the
Is
cop.
there no provision?
Uh,
I mean,
Well,
what
that's
is-
what. it was.
This is
that
what leading
right?
to it is that you have to understand you cannot push the snow across the street. You don't own
Or into
across
the
the
street.
street.
Or into
You-
the
Or into, but they leave a lot of it in the street when they do it. And then we come down after we have the street cleaned, and I mean cleaned, and we go to North State Road and it's a mess.
So here's my question. Is there anything in do we have an ordinance or a code that says that people can't do that way?
There's a state law that says you cannot throw the snow back into the right of way.
Do
Right.
we need,
I'm,
are we talking about possibly doing that? I mean, I'm just.
Well, we already have, it's already a state code that you can't throw it into the street. What Michael and I were talking about earlier was, earlier last week, when we were actually dealing with these snow issues that were not, a fluff, was the actual pushing the snow across the street into the properties across the street. Because a lot of it is, a lot of it is just sidewalk. Our entire North State Road is sidewalked,
both sides.
both sides, and so we end up not having our sidewalks shoveled, which is the responsibility of the property owner. And but I don't know. We can do the thing about snowing. We can
Well,
follow up on the streets, but how do we handle when they go in? They push it past the street over to the other side of the road, which always leaves some in the street.
And what
'Cause
they,
it kind of goes out the side.
but they
right?
don't own the property across the
And they
street.
don't own it. They're
It's
putting the
not
snow
there. They're
somewhere
putting
they don't.
snow on somebody else's property. And in the case of North State Road, they cover the sidewalk.
Do you ever see who's doing this?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I'll stand out there and tell the cops to arrest him. Seize his equipment for 2 hours. He'll,
Arrest
you know.
them. Wow.
Because the law does provide
Are you-
if you have, if your property abuts a sidewalk, you're responsible to clear the snow within a certain number of hours.
Right.
So if one of your neighbors is now putting snow on your side, on the
Right.
sidewalk, that's a matter between neighbors, actually, because the neighbor who ends up with the snow on the sidewalk has an obligation then to clear the sidewalk. So,
I think it's very important that we make everyone understand that we know this is going on, and we're going to be working with the police department,
Right.
and, to enforce it better, because, number one, our highway department takes the fact that they move the snow very seriously, and they push it as far as they can, so without impeding the sidewalk again, and, to come back down the same road because somebody started clearing a parking lot. I don't know how far we can go, but I would like you to check, council, is to some kind of regulation that you either have to keep the snow on your own property or remove it from the property via a truck, which, is what you see a lot of people do. A lot of people pile their snow up in a corner in different places, and then they have a truck come in if it's extensive, unless it gets out of control like poor Boston right now. But
We
You
can
know.
put a provision in our code which states very simply that any snow, all snow removal activities on any person's property, on any property, would result, will not create, I guess, snow will be removed from the property onto any abutting properties, something
Right.
along those lines.
Okay, and to remind people, and we'll get the code out for the state code and everything on how you are not allowed to throw. I mean, and it's a good reminder for people because residents do it too. They throw the snow that when they're shoveling their driveway, and
Now,
Yeah,
here's,
yeah.
here's the problem. We,
Snow plows put it there.
yeah,
Well,
they put it there and they take.
but
it.
our responsibility is to open the roads to commerce for the public and for emergency vehicles. That's our responsibility. The other situation with people pushing snow, and it's not limited to North State Road, is to other streets where they'll push it across the street and it mounds up so much that it's out into the lane of traffic.
Right.
And it's so heavy and dense that our plows can't move it. The plow coming down just can't get that thing back again.
So why don't we have council put together?
violation of state law.
I was gonna say,
Right,
but but-
I've called the police, I've called the village, and I've said, okay, it's snowing, I want a car over here now. I want you to ride up and down the street now and stop anybody from doing this.
And do they get tickets?
No.
The violators?
No, and then I don't see the police cars.
Okay,
So,
we'll talk
so
about
something we need to deal with.
that's,
We'll talk
that's
to
the
that.
thing that we need to have, is that if I make the call and says, I want a police car out here on North State Road, I want to stop it when you catch anybody, any contractors that's moving the snow across the road, it has to stop.
Okay, we will work on that. Yes, sir.
Michael G., I know the supervisor is always very highly complimentary of you and your crew, but I just wanted to add that, especially in winters like this, where you guys are just pushed to the limits, we really appreciate what you do for the community, your hard work of you and your men and everybody on your staff it's not only great for the convenience of our community, but it's great for safety, and it keeps our community
I'll pass that
Safe.
on, I'll pass that on to the men. They are, when it's cold and they're out there working and everything breaks. I mean, these plows, parts breaks. The plows are, they're hitting, they're going along and they'll hit because of the thawing and heaving, a valve cover for a water box will rise an eighth of an inch, and it's just be enough to catch the plow, and that jarring sensation. And over the years, one of our older trucks right now is in the shop because because they're four-wheel drives. We call the front axle the front rear because it has a differential in it, just like the rear has a differential. So the front has a differential. That whole thing snapped, and this is on an international truck.
Wow.
It snapped. Over the years, it got to the point, the straw that broke the camel's back, that he hit something, and it was just enough, and that whole thing broke. So the toll on the equipment is severe. You're riding
Well, with the cold, especially
but
this
with,
year
with,
too.
with the cold it adds to it, you're correct. But the trucks are riding in the snow that they've dumped where there's salt on it, calcium chloride on it, and that's all coming up under the undercarriage. We get rust and rot, and I want to say that our maintenance crew has done a fantastic job. The guys that are riding these plows for hours on end are doing a great job, and I will tell them that you
I
sent
will
along
say
your
that
compliments.
last year was a very long winter.
Yeah.
This year, we didn't have winter until like the second week or third week in January, and this last month has been a very long month. And it was the first time we had the Teamster reps up the other day, and it's the first time, usually you say, oh my God, these poor guys are exhausted. And he usually says, oh, don't worry about it. They're hardy boys, and this is the first time people are actually saying, you know what, it's exhausting because it's so cold.
Ridiculously
It's cold. So anyway, so those are your two subjects for this evening, young man.
Can I
Yep.
just say that for another time, when we went to, I don't know if you made the announcement.
Oh, right. Maybe we're gonna talk
We-
about that.
And we won't talk about it now, but I just want to say, we went to, some of us went to the city to the annual Association of Towns Municipal Meetings and Training. I think I got that whole in, right? And we learn updated rules, regulations, and information. And I sat through a 50-minute seminar on town roads. So, the 10 things you need to know about town roads. So I'm sure in subsequent meetings, we will speak about those things that will intersect with some of the things that you're talking about. And some of those things have to do with signage. So we can, further discuss those things at another time. And
Oh,
well,
yes.
I think there's all kinds of conversations we can have about what we want as a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you. Thank you for our wonderful roads and all your hard work.
Well, it's.
And it's also, it's the,
Well, the clearing of the roads.
a special thank you goes out to both the highway and the town parks department. They all work as a
Oh,
team
yes, that's right.
during this time, and the two foremen is Johnny Martin and Mario Bellardo. So, thank you. Okay, moving right along. Our next item is a discussion on, now you may think that this is spelled incorrectly. Crossing, because
Crossing.
it's the,
Crossing.
it's
It is.
crossing.
Crossing.
Crossing Bridge Maintenance Contract with the Village of Croton. And it's it's the walking bridge that you can take from outside of Mystic Point / St. Augustine's driveways across until you get into Croton. It's 1 mile. Take it from me. I've walked it. And it's 1 mile. And it takes you to the road that leads you to the train station. So we have, Maddie, do you?
This is something that the town has been paying, the town of Ossining has been paying the village of Croton for a while, is the maintenance basically of that walkway. Right, because it kind of floats between the two communities. It doesn't really belong specifically to either one. But as you can see in the way that this is laid out, it sort of explains that, it's easier if one community takes responsibility for it. So they've invoiced us regularly for many years, I think. So I think this is just an updated contract, because I think the one that had existed has been expired for a while. So, they've still been billing us, we've still been paying, but, it's better to have something in
What
writing.
do we pay and what do we pay for? Oh,
We pay for them to do the
this is,
for them to do the maintenance on the,
Yeah.
on the entire length of the bridge
And the streetlights.
and the streetlights, right? So we pay about $2,400. Right. Yeah. And sometimes, yeah, so, it's for them to maintain it and keep the streetlights going and everything. And if we were to go on and do our LED lighting project, which we hope is not too distant future, Croton would not be far behind, because Croton is a very environmental, community. It's about $2,400, Maddie? Remember the amount?
It has the contract pricing in for 2015 through 2019, but it also says that this will automatically renew for 5 years. Excuse me. If this sneeze, it will come out.
Okay.
Anyway,
Maybe
And-
Eric did something too.
no, not Eric's fault. So increasing at a rate of 5% per year, so you can see, how that breaks out on the first page.
Can I just add a quick question? You may not know about this.
Oh, I hope I do.
Manny. Where does the snow go off of the bridge?
Ooh, that is a good question.
It doesn't go into the river.
It doesn't go to North State Road.
I'm just asking.
We will check with Croton. Where does the snow go off
I've
the?
never seen it. I've never seen a.
That's
plow
interesting.
on the bridge. Obviously, it gets plowed.
Right.
But it's
Well, it's
narrow.
probably
I wonder
it's
how
probably
they-
done with one of those little gators. I have seen a truck next to the road and then working on the
Yeah.
bridge. Yeah, but the Croton takes care of that little path, it's just a little pathway.
Like the jogging path.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that
Interesting.
little path, but I will definitely ask them to clarify, where does that snow go?
Maybe you don't wanna know.
Well, I know it doesn't go in the river, because it can't. Except if you're in dire and you have to make a decision, so unfortunately for some people. Okay, so we're just going to, so this will be on the agenda next week to approve that contract going forward, for that little crossing, how do you pronounce it?
Crossing? I don't know.
Crossing.
I was driving over it today
Crossing.
and I told the person in the car with me, you know this is called the Crossing Bridge? But is it actually called that, or is that just like a cute
I-
colloquialism?
I don't know.
kinda-
We'll have to do,
Okay.
we'll have to get a historian to look at, John Travokas? Oh, John Travokas' term, which he was very good at making.
Oh, yeah?
Creating a lot of, yeah, he was he was an advertising guy, and he did, Please Don't Squeeze the Charmin, that's his baby, right? I'm sorry?
He and Bob Elliott got it, and Rich Hurd convinced the state to put a walkway there with lights. The DOT in their original plan to replace the bridge, was a dozen years ago, they weren't going to put a walkway.
Oh,
And so then there came the agreement that the municipalities would be responsible for this pathway and the lights, and considering that it would link the two communities, John Travolta's the idea of crossing.
great. And I have to tell you that if you've never walked this path, there is some signage on it too that explains to you everything about the Croton River and how the Croton River feeds into the Hudson River. So there's some interesting signage that, if you've never walked, I'm sure you've walked it. Gareth, have you walked it? Oh, yeah, many times,
It's a
right?
little breezy
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it can be breezy, yeah. Okay, a change in the vehicle policy, and you all got a copy of the vehicle policy, and,
Yep, it's,
yeah, I know.
the vehicle policy, some of you may remember, we worked on a little bit in 2012, I think it was, when we had the giant decals put on all the town vehicles. So this is a pretty small change to the actual policy. You'll see it on the top of the second page, the underlining. But basically, this has arisen based on a couple of situations that we've had. We only have 2 take-home vehicles right now in the town. There's one for the superintendent of highways and one for the building inspector. So all the other town vehicles are used by employees who obviously are not taking the vehicles home at night. They're using them to perform their jobs. So we have like sedans, station wagons for the senior nutrition program, and then we also have some trucks. Basically, this is born of a need to not have folks taking those vehicles to their homes. There's obviously a whole bunch of reasons why that's not really appropriate. But basically, the suggestion was if somebody's on a lunch break or something like that, that they be using their own vehicle rather than taking a town vehicle to their home. Or, you know, if they're stopping for food or something like that on a break. Do you want to sort of...
Yeah, I just want to point out that in our Teamster contract, they only get a half an hour for lunch, so it's not a very long period of time. We want to emphasize that lunch is a half hour. It's not because you're in a town vehicle that you drive home 10 minutes, then you start your lunch half hour, and then you drive 10 minutes back. So it's more to give to make it uniform the way that most of the people are using it. If you were driving past a deli and you were heading back to the office, and you stopped at the deli to pick up a sandwich, and you know, that is a different story than taking this long time to get to your home, spending your lunch half hour or 45 minutes, then coming back.
And there are liability
there's
issues as well. I mean, it's
absolutely
not your
liability issue.
vehicle, so to be
Yeah.
sort of...
And they're not, and most of them are not small. So if you take it to your house and you live on a small street, this truck could create the same problem that some of these other trucks do, because some of them are quite large.
Are we talking, I mean, I know we're talking about in general, but are we also talking about people taking it, these people don't necessarily live in Ossining? They're not taking it down the
I-
street, or?
I think,
mean, are we-
generally speaking, it tends to be the local employees. I don't,
'Cause they
I've
don't
not
let it happen.
heard that there's anybody who's driving,
Nobody
out of
takes,
town,
nobody
really.
takes it, nobody, everyone, they all come back to their shops and they take their cars home at night. Nobody's taking it home at night. and
So what we're saying, I'm just trying to clarify in a general way.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is, you drove your car to work, and then you have a truck or a car to drive for work. And so if you're going to go home,
Right.
you should drop that, park it and pick up your own car and take it to your
Correct.
home. Okay.
And still be obligated
But a half hour, but if you live down the road, it's only
rough,
taking
though.
you 3
Rough house.
minutes.
Yeah.
And then, so you can go home
Lot
if
of
you want
lunch
to,
people.
or
People
eat
bring
for
their lunch
15
to work.
minutes.
Yeah, so I mean, if anyone has any suggestions as to how the language should maybe be changed, this was just sort of my first attempt at it. But otherwise, we would like to go ahead and just amend the policy. It's a pretty simple change. And then send a memo out to all of the departments to just remind them that,
Oh,
they're,
this is the part, okay.
Yeah. Would you turn on your, just wanted you to have a, here.
I just can't imagine. Now, like the guy I know drive the Meals on Wheels
Yes,
thing there. He live on State Street.
yeah.
And the deal for
Well,
driving home for lunch. I'm just using him for an example.
Exact, okay.
Now, what's the big deal of him go home for lunch? Well, he's out there anyway with the lunches. So maybe he just eat it while he's there. I don't know. I'm just.
I know.
I mean,
Well,
what
do
is
most of them come, in that particular scenario, do most of them eat at the
at the
senior?
center.
Yeah. As part of, so,
Maybe he doesn't.
it's
Maybe
not-
he doesn't go home for lunch then.
right.
I don't know, but I'm just saying that that's where he lives on State Street.
This particular young man.
Yeah, and it would not be in my opinion, a big deal to drive home if that's what he wanted to do.
I guess that's why I was asking if it's outside of local. Because if they're driving to Rockland,
Oh,
then
no,
I
no,
could
no.
see how that would be
Yeah,
an
I can
issue.
see
But
that one, yeah,
but I guess that's what I'm asking is
Well-
if they're driving to, pick a street
Yeah,
okay.
right.
in
So
Ossining.
what if I should, if there were a car here at 16 Croton and I decided one day I'm going to go home for lunch. So I hop in the town car and I go to my house and something happens. Something happens to the car while it's in my possession. I wasn't on town business. I had it parked in my driveway and some neighborhood kid took a hockey stick to it or something like that. Like, it was on your property. It was under your care. It was someplace that it shouldn't have been. Whose responsibility is that?
I guess, I mean, we those are letters of that, Eric, it's the letters of the law, but I guess we are a small town, and if your employees tend to be local, I could see how it'd be a little bit difficult. I mean, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. What is the later, what is it? Then whose responsibility? And
So, are we talking about there's one employee and there's two cars because they probably got themselves to work that day.
well, that's
So they either have their car or they have a town car. Instead of going to their car, they're going to the town car.
No,
What-
well, they were
what we're
driving
saying is-
around.
But they might
Well,
be
so
driving
but
around.
aren't you saying that that's okay if they're driving on the way back from someplace and
If
they
they-
stop at a deli? That's
Yeah.
okay, but
Yeah.
you're not allowed to.
It's a slippery slope, though, and
It
that's why we're
is,
sort of
it's-
having trouble,
and it's- and it's- and it's-
defining.
And it's,
this.
it's not necessarily lunch, it could be, well, I wanted to take a break and I stopped at my house, and then, their manager or their foreman can't find them. Do you know what I mean? And it opens up that little Pandora's box of, where are you? Well, I stopped at home, I had to use the restroom, I had to take I wanted to say hello to the family. And, it's just, we're just trying to bring it that,
That
Eddie.
seems like a different issue than if you're taking your car with you. If you're driving around and part of your responsibility is driving around the area and you happen to stop by your house on the way, and in general, but if it happens to be on your lunch hour.
Uh-huh.
I don't.
This
Okay,
tends to
half hour, but if
Even
it's on the
worse,
way, what's the difference between me stopping on the way and going into my house and getting my sandwich and going to the deli where somebody knocks it, you know what I mean? Like,
Right, but the difference is in most of the instances that I'm describing, it's not on the way. It's like, okay, it's my lunchtime. I'm going to drive from wherever I am to my house. It's not on the way. I'm just going home for lunch in the town's vehicle rather than using my own.
But that speaks to the Eric's part, which is they're not leaving from here, or from wherever their main area is, where their car is and the town car is, and they choose the town car to go to their house. We're talking about people who are in their vehicles during the day and maybe wherever, and now their lunch period comes up and they want to go home. So
There's certainly exceptions within reason. I mean, I don't think anybody, like, nobody's foreman is going to say, oh, I saw, you were at such and such a location. I saw you 2 blocks away at your house. That's unacceptable. I think what we're trying to discourage is making a separate trip with a town vehicle when
That
it's not
sometimes
necessary.
drives by where your car is.
And that's why, like I said, the language, it's a little
hard.
bit hard to really define. And that's why I was kind of looking to the board to help. And, maybe we need to take a couple weeks and really mull this over.
I think I see what I think maybe it's figuring out language that could be.
But this seems okay. I mean, they're not allowed to run errands on town. I don't know. I don't see it as a big problem. So,
I gotta taste it.
the problem, since it seems like this is an issue that needs to be addressed by changing a policy, that means to me that some privileges are being abused. So,
Anything happen?
so
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
okay, then
This is not out of the clear blue
Yeah,
sky.
we
Let's
didn't-
put
we-
it that way.
We don't,
Bless
we're
you.
not
Bless
gonna
you.
spend
Yeah, I
our
figured
time
we
with
didn't
you,
bring it
because
up
we have a
if nothing
lot of
happened.
stuff on the table
Yeah.
right now. We have the whole last work session of things we're working on. We have a whole bunch of stuff we're in the middle of, and now we have some new stuff. So it is a situation where you sometimes get challenged. Well, it doesn't say it anywhere in writing that I can't do it almost, So, it's almost like, don't bring 4 guys with you when you go to get coffee. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And stuff like that. It goes back to helping our foremen and our managers manage better
Right.
by putting something in the policy that allows them to point at it.
Yeah.
But should something come up that, somebody needs to, we've had it where, we've actually said, listen, something happened, go get that guy, bring him to his house, bring the truck back. Do you know what I mean? We've actually done that. If something happened, God forbid, something should happen to somebody in his family. So we just want to make it clear to people that to use it as a tool. Let's leave it at that. to use
And
it as a-
it's
this
not
looks fine
meant-
by me, by the way. For the record, I've read this 100 times already, and it looks great.
Yeah,
And if it helps
not,
foremen to operate better and
That doesn't mean it's nothing.
and encourage the accountability, and it reduces liability for the town,
Yeah.
it's easy.
It's a policy, which means that what you're really looking to do is just forestall the abusive situations,
Right.
and not necessarily, it's certainly not in a labor contract. It's not
Right,
anything
yeah.
that can result necessarily
Right.
in somebody's being disciplined necessarily, but it's a policy that is intended to prevent certain
But
activities.
it also helps us when we do have situations with the unions, then we can they say, show me where it's, because this is a good
Right.
line, a big line. Show me where it says that, and we can say, well, it says it right here.
and it's not meant to be punitive. It's just
No.
kind of nipping something in the bud. And I think that, all of our, our foreman and,
Yep.
Michael G, they're all reasonable people. They're not going to
Right.
take somebody to task over, a tiny infraction. But just so that they have something to point to in case something does arise, to say, hey, you're really not following the rules. They have a tool for that.
Okay? Any questions? Okay. Okay, Maddie, you're on again. Earth Day, Captain Lawrence.
Okay, so this is actually really fast. So as
The
you,
answer is yes.
yeah, as you may recall, the Green Ossining Committee had Captain Lawrence come as a vendor to our Earth Day celebration last year, and it was a big hit, and everybody had a really good time. But there are a couple of procedural things that do need to be worked on in order to allow them to do that. One of which is permission from the town board to be able to sell alcohol in a town park. So I can go ahead and put together a resolution to put on the agenda for next week, if the board is okay with that.
It's a one-day license.
Yeah.
Plus, they have to get their own license from New York
I
State as
have
well.
all the stuff from last year. They have to get a temporary event permit from the state liquor authority, and
Insurance.
then, right, and then the folks who are actually working with me, the folks who are on Green Ossining, have basically outlined this entire process and just basically said, we need you to initial here. But so the town would need insurance from Captain Lawrence, naming the town as additional insured, and then the amount of the coverage. So once they pass this with you folks, then they can start preparing that. And obviously, this is, I think, April 18th is Earth
Right.
Day this year, so
Yep.
so there's a while to go. But I just wanted to make sure
Well, it
that
takes a while sometimes for it to get through the whole process too with the state.
As far as I recall, this is not something that comes out of the blue. I mean, there are other groups that have.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we had Captain Lawrence there last year, and
Right.
they made a nice contribution
Yeah.
to Green Ossining, the Green Ossining Committee. So
and
that
it's
they
not
can
like a
keep up
big
their good work.
crazy wing ding. I
No,
mean,
no.
everybody's having like a beer.
Yeah,
It's a
you get
pretty
this little cup of
civilized.
beer, and it's very, and it's and it's
So-
usually hopefully warm by then, and we'll all be happy. You know.
So if it's okay with you all, I will go ahead and put together a resolution so that we can send them on their way to filling out all the other
Great.
paperwork.
Is Captain Lawrence a local
Yes.
brewery?
Ellsworth.
Yeah.
You've never
Okay.
been?
It's
I've been.
It's local lesson. It's local lesson.
It's as local as we can be right now.
It's local
Um,
lesson. It's Westchester.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
local lesson. It's not Austin.
Well,
But
it's,
I just
As local
wanna,
as local beer gets.
Yes, okay. However, we are. I'm aware of that. There's a
several.
potential brewer coming to our
Yeah.
more local area.
And when as we
not
get
yet.
closer to
But
those
not yet.
things, and we'll, but Captain Lawrence does a good job, and they have it very well organized and stuff. Just before we go to number 5, I just want to bring up some new business and some continuing business. I know, but just before we do that, continuing business, I just wanted to, and I apologize that it's really just to recap for the board. The next step, we did the public hearing on the ethics, and the next step is to,
Now we have a resolution that's going to be before the next legislative meeting.
okay, and then we can start the whole process of putting out for people to apply for the
Right.
positions and what have you. Okay. And then I just want to ask the board's permission. Again, we were going to speak about our time at the Association of Towns, but I think we can wait because the other ones went on a little bit longer. But it was good discussions with John and with Michael G. On next week, we're going to be having a public hearing on Maya Riviera cabaret license. And if we have no objections or people that come in to talk about it, we're wondering if it would be okay with the board to have a resolution that we don't normally do the night of a public hearing, but it's for a cabaret license, and they want to have music on March 7th, so we have to
To what
expect.
time are they saying? Is it a time?
It
thing?
was like 11 o'clock they used to do it, right?
Was it 1? It was 1.
Oh,
I
1?
thought. Which, I mean, I think wasn't that the thing that the previous people were like 2 in the morning? And
Oh,
we
they
said
tried to do
no?
4, but then we
Oh,
said,
no.
yeah.
back from what it had
been, Yeah. I don't Okay, but whatever. Okay.
But 1 isn't even so bad because
No.
they keep it in the front room. That we had,
Yeah.
and of all the people, they follow all the rules and everything.
the license
Right.
everybody
Good. So if nobody has a problem with that, we've already.
I don't have a problem. I just want a quick update. Has there been any police activity since the last application?
No, the police did their investigation. John did his checking because the building inspector goes in too, and everything that there was an issue, one little thing, and they fixed it right away. So, but again, okay. So other than that, did you have something else, Matt? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my God, one last thing. Sorry, folks. Only because this is another timely thing.
Well, tell me something.
Yes, sir.
It was warm in here when we
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at my mic. I'm sorry. I like when you go, now tell me.
I have 3 layers on, so I would be freezing if I didn't have the 3 layers. Oh yeah, he has 5.
I apologize to everyone for laughing in my microphone more than said. It was very funny. He goes, pardon me while I say. This is and we apologize that it is the tax, unpaid water bills that we must give to the tax receiver, because at this point, these water bills must be put on their taxes.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Before the April
Everybody got
tax
one?
goes out. I'll
Could you
take it.
pass
That's
one to
fine.
Wayne, please?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I made one for you too, Manny.
Thank you.
Okay, so the village treasurer and the town controller, Tom Warren, put this together for us. And as it says, in the past few years, for the past several years, pursuant with an intermunicipal agreement between the town and the village, the town is included in the county tax roll unpaid water balances. So 2/5/15 sent final letters out. 2/17, and this is important for you if you owe on your water bills. Give tentative list as at that date to the town board with a memo. That's today. Of unpaid town outside receivable list as of 3/6/2015 to be levied on the tax roll. 2/17/2015 town board work session includes discussion on the re-levy process, and that's this whole letter that Tom has put together, and he's put together all the different people that it is to. 3/6, submit the final list of unpaid receivables from town outside companies to the town board for levy on the town roll, and remove listed re-levy amounts from water receivables. And 3/10, town board adopts the resolution. And the reason that we're pushing this through tonight is we don't have another work session because of our town hall meeting at the beginning of March. We don't have another work session, so we'd like you to read this over. If you have any questions, please feel free to talk to Tom or Maddie or myself. And again, it's something that we do every year.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
There are a couple of numbers on here that are not a lot. So what is the criteria by which you get? I mean, I see one that's about $112.
Right.
So that's not we're not talking about a huge increment. So under what's the criteria that you get onto this list?
It's, if you look at the first page here, which is an example of a letter, if you have not paid for the entire year of 2014,
Okay.
and it could,
Okay.
or if
So
you,
a full
so if you have
year?
water bills, any water bills that you have open in 2014 would be put on your taxes. So you might be just the fourth quarter.
It just might be one time and
Right.
you're late and that's it.
Right.
Now, can I ask another?
Boy.
They don't turn your water off anymore?
No.
For one bill? I mean, for a few days late? Wow.
No. We're talking about people
This,
that,
all this big bills, some of them.
Well, no, some of them are big.
well, some of them, so,
I
yeah.
remember when they would turn it off for one.
Yeah. No,
They leave a tag
the
on it.
policy in the village is not to turn water off,
Tough.
and that's why they put them on, well, all they're really doing is moving it over to your tax bill. So it's really a much more, it's a better way of dealing with it than to threaten, because
Right.
we had it a few years ago. I remember in 2012, there was another surrounding municipality, that was threatening to turn people's water off, and you don't want to turn people's water off now, and you don't want to turn it off in the summer. So, okay. So you have a list here of the people. They still have time to redeem their taxes. So their final due date, anyone that's gotten in the unincorporated area that has gotten an unpaid water bill, you have till the 27th of February to pay, and that would be paid at the second floor of 16 Croton Avenue in the finance office. Okay?
So if you are an individual who has failed to pay your water bill for, say, the fourth quarter
Right.
of the year,
you're on this
you at
list.
least have an opportunity to get an invoice for the first quarter of the following year before you would be put on this list. So if you get a follow-up invoice that says, okay, are there interim delinquent announcements or notices?
Yeah, they sent you out notices and everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's
Yes,
fine then.
Yes. And again, it's sometimes the amounts are higher than you expect them to be. So.
And everybody's on a different schedule because of the
Oh,
zones.
they are never.
Are
They are never, ever, ever not collecting water bills. I thought they did it like once a quarter, and they had it. They're on such cycles that there's different parts of the community. Remember, because they do the water for the village of Ossining and the unincorporated area of Ossining. So again, it's interesting, but we do want to tell everyone that they do have until. And the 27th of February, and for some people it's easier if they put it on their tax bill. So that's what they do. Okay. So we just wanted to make sure you had that. We wanted to make sure we had that announcement, and I'm glad we didn't have him sit here all this time. So, and wait to do that because I said he didn't have to tonight. So, okay. So I think with that, we will move into executive session for the purpose of legal advice. Do I have a move?
Do we move?
Yeah.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn into executive session
For the purpose of,
for
for
legal
the
advice.
purpose of legal advice.
Second.
All in
All in
favor?
Thank you.
Abstained? Objections?
yeah.
Overruled?
No. And thank you very much. We again want everyone to stay warm. We do see the sun was out this afternoon. It was very nice to see it, even though it was very bitterly cold. Be careful of the snow and be careful of the cold. And we hope spring is right around the corner. And I think baseball is in 30 days or something, right?
That's in Florida.
Yeah, but that's in Florida.
we're in
Yeah.
spring training.
So we want to thank you all and have a great week.